Okay, so welcome to the Conscious Union with God class. And this is, we use the book of Joel Goldsmith, Conscious Union with God. Today, another chapter in the book Conscious Union. And but first, we're going to relax, open ourselves up to receive whatever is given and to see where we find ourselves in reality, because that's where we're going to connect with. So in order to do that, we come into silence, into stillness, just like we did already before this class started. You calm down, you let your distractions go, you let your thoughts go, and all that. You start to sit back and relax, and there's some kind of alertness coming into you too, that you don't want to miss anything. You want to be present in this moment. So that's what we do and what's happening in this moment. So please join us in that, and it's going to be, a very interesting class. Because of the fact that in this chapter there are so many parts of the awakening, that's just unbelievable. So it's like a whole summary of the whole infinite way, if you want. It's like teaching the message. But what is the message was my question. It's like, what is the message? So let's take a look at that. So the help of Joel is great because the way that he expresses himself is very practical. So he comes up with a couple of examples and with some material that's very useful for us in our awakening. And so that's why I love to use the book, and that's why we do that. And say this is preparing us to become aware, actually, where we exactly find ourselves in our spiritual development. Not that you have to figure that out, but no, there's just some kind of guidance is there in this book of Joel of what to do with with concepts, but also what to do, like how to implement your own experience into this. And that's why it's good to read that and to become aware again, or to remember for yourself, like, oh yeah, wait a minute, I'm using concepts pretty easily without maybe even that I experienced it for myself, but taking it as concept, as a truth, which is of course not the same as experiencing the truth and experiencing what the idea holds, or what the knowledge is that is connected to it. So it's good to have an instruction from him in that sense, in which we see, like, oh, wait a minute, let's be careful with what we use and how we use it, and what actually is what. That we know where we're talking about, and what is for you and what is not for you, or what. You can be completely satisfied, if you want, with the place where you find yourself. You have to accept that for yourself in order to stay close to your own experience. That's really important. So for me, when I read the chapter, it came back to, okay, let's take a look at in what situations am I actually speaking from my experience. And that's actually really nice to do, because you discover, I actually experience that continuously, or I'm so used to it that it doesn't even come to my awareness that it is different, that it changed or anything. I'm already used to that too. So that's always the case with even with your spiritual development. It's like, you don't want to take credit for the experiences that you have. You don't want to walk around with them and who knows doing what with them. But on the other side, it's good to recognize and also to acknowledge in yourself all the incredible experiences that you have, that you actually have an experience of not being of this world, or that you have an experience of overwhelming love for God. Or even an experience of oneness with God. you know. And so that's also good. That was what was happening for me in reading this. Is like, oh, it's so great to actually acknowledge what experiences I have, where it is that I'm speaking of, you know, where do I come from when I share this. So today there will probably be some say transparency when it comes to that too. Some examples in which that is being exemplified. Because say teaching the message is like, well, that cannot be in a conceptual way. That would be meaningless. Maybe it can be helpful for a moment, but it will, like the revelation of it will come to you. And teaching from your own experience becomes then really like, what have you, say, integrated into yourself, in the undoing of yourself, and how can you express that? So that's really lovely, the way that Joel describes it in this chapter, and it was really great to say put this in order for myself too. So I don't know how it was for you to read this chapter, and so feel free to share some of that after the class, or maybe as a comment to this video. You're welcome to do that. So the title is Teaching the Message. So the message is, you can say like, okay, that's the message of the infinite way. And the infinite way is in that sense specific, because Joel, say, downloaded it, if you want. He put it into a book. He put it into his talks. He literally, say, gave birth to it in his life. So that's useful for us, because we can now read it and see how this can support us in our awakening. Okay, so the interesting part, I will come back to what I read. So the interesting part with the 5 senses is where he starts with, you've 5 senses, you all know them. But there are 2 extra, he says. One is the intuition, and the other one is the consciousness, the faculty of consciousness. And that is the still and deep place inside yourself where you actually, get information about whatever you want, in fact. You can get information, like you can hear the voice from there, but you can also use it as some sense in that sense. And the same with intuition, of course. It's like, we're very much intuitive beings, we're very much relying on our intuition. So these are aspects of our, beingness that you can just not wash over, so to speak. But it is good to take a really good look at how that works for you in your life. So I want to read some of this from the chapter that we are reading, and see where that brings us. Let me see if I got the right page. So it's on my ebook. So there's the faculty of intuition, and there's also the faculty of consciousness, which is without any thought process or any outer process. It is actually a silence. In that silence, which is the ultimate, we are alive in God, experiencing only God acting through us. Acting through, or as, individual you and me. Okay, I'll read that again. In that silence, which is the ultimate, we are alive in God, experiencing only God acting through, or as, individual you and me. Well, this is great. So this is silence. And that's always the interesting thing, huh? It's like silence. Well, it's like a well. It's like a well. It bubbles up in you. It's silence, but it's not dead still, so to speak. It is say alive. It is creative. It is, it brings us something. It's literally something is happening in us with that. It feeds us. And so is the other times we were speaking about like how to look at yourself being consciousness or energy or however you want to define that. There's like this silence is also coming from that same, say, energy or coming from that same depth and abstraction. Like it's really abstract in fact, but at the same time it feeds us, it supports us, it rejuvenates us. So it's energy, it is communication. So that's really interesting to keep that just as a moment, like as an image for yourself. So let's see the next. However, the activity of consciousness can be called. So I have to do this. However, the activity of consciousness can be called the soul sense, in contradistinction to the 5 physical senses. Without eyes, it would be possible to see. Without eyes, it is possible to see. I've done this repeatedly and can do at will through inner vision. But this inner vision involves the development of the soul sense. So then he goes into this example where he actually experienced seeing the place that he was in, even though he was blindfolded, it was dark, you couldn't really see it, but actually the image was perfectly clear for him. So you've probably experiences like that too, that you can see without any light on, that you actually maybe in a half almost like dream state, that you suddenly see the things as they are when the light would be on. And of course you have this memory in yourself too, that you know how the place is. So this part is interesting. He gives this example of it. You probably read it. So I'll leave that for what it is. But so it's good to be aware of the possibility of using intuition, using, developing the soul sense of consciousness. Like you can say like the spiritual abilities that you get by practicing, by being in communication. Suddenly there's something that you discover that you can do. Like for instance, I had this when I had my first awakening experiences. I was so clairvoyant. I literally knew where everyone could find his keys when they were lost, or find this kind of cloth, like, oh, where's my t-shirt? It's up there, I can take a look there. And I just knew that. It's like these things are happening when you wake up. It's suddenly you have an ability that you can use. And that's great. That's great that you discovered, like, I'm not limited to any idea about myself. So when that opens up, like also the abilities are opening up, and yeah, you can use that. You can play with that if you want. You can say apply that, and so that's part of the awakening too. So it's what I actually mean to say is like it is a real interesting part of your transformation. Like seeing that you go beyond your your ideas of limitation, even in discovering your soul sense, like how you can develop special abilities to use. Like these are coming from to connect with others and to confirm the communication. It's like it is a way of connecting. It's always like, if you want, positive use. So that's why they are these are like abilities that are not from this world, you know. You don't do that here in that sense. Like it's not measurable, but it's actually there. So that's so great about that. So anyway, we continue with the oh yeah, so this is also interesting. So the second part of the book, of this chapter, is about the two patients that he's describing, like the special occasion that is taking place that goes beyond ideas of body and beyond ideas of limitation also again. So there's this man falling down, having almost like an heart attack or something of that kind, and the doctor comes in and he gives him two more hours to live, and then seeing that the man actually stands up and does his last things at his desk to finish off his work, and 2 hours later the doctor comes in, but he's still working at his desk and he continues to do so for 20 years. Like, okay, that the heart is not able to beat normally anymore, but it's still functioning. And the same with the guy with the eardrums, like not being able to make music, but as an engineer he works just fine and can hear. It's not a problem. So these examples that Joel gives are actually very practical, and also it's like, yeah, you recognize that you start to see those situations too. Like I'm for sure that you have some memories of situations with physical impossibilities, so to speak, where it looks like the doctor says this, but it's actually not a problem at all. It's pretty amazing how this changed. I had this many times that I saw this as an example. Also with people with heart failure, seeing that they fall down, they're gone for half an hour. It seems like no breathing at all, and then standing up and walking again, and yeah, no doctor visit is necessary. It's like it's pretty amazing that it can be like that. But it's all based on the idea that you think that it all is necessary to go through a certain, say, almost protocol of medical science. And that is, yeah, that's interesting. That doesn't really work like that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to a doctor when you feel sick, but I'm saying like there is, in your spiritual development, you say you open up that also, you know, like you go beyond the limits of what you had, the limits that you had as a human being. You see that much more is possible, and that you're not limited by the human law of medical law at all. You know, you're not limited by it. So then in the recognition of our true source is like, well, here's also something to look at for yourself. It's like, okay, so what am I believing in? What is really, what am I looking for in my, what do I want to be confirmed in me? And what is it really that I trust? You know, these things is not good or bad or anything like that. It is more like, well, just be honest with yourself, where you find yourself, and take action in whatever way you can or have to. Oh yeah, then there's the idea of Christ. Well, that's also, so this is the third part of the book, the Christ experience. Like, how familiar are you to the Christ? Are you touched by the Christ? Can you see the Christ in your brother? So these things we read about, you can have concepts about them. Well, I have to forgive him, he's the Christ, or whatever you can think, but it's like, did you really have the experience of seeing the Christ in someone, or are you on the way to that? And so these say concepts can turn into a real experience for you. And what is necessary? So Joel tells us a little bit about that. I will read that in a moment. But so again, now look back at your own experiences. Are you familiar with experiencing the Christ? Are you touched by the Christ? Did you find yourself in a certain place, suddenly being completely overwhelmed with an incredible feeling of love and with a real sense of presence, as if you were like holding someone that you love so much, and melting completely in that. We all have experiences like that. So it is good to recognize that as, yes, that is what that is. Like, yes, that is what being touched by the Christ is. Letting all your defenses go and not being afraid to completely fall into that. See, I'm not saying that you should do it on a daily basis. Who knows what happens, and be open to it, and also don't defend yourself against it. No, let it happen. But see, it is more like from concept to experience, from concept to a real, say, revelation of it, is really what this is about. Like, you can read 1,000 books, but this will do that to you. This will give you the certainty that you are looking for. And that can be found in you by you being open to receive that. So yeah, speaking for myself, I have these experiences. So that is so great. Like, I'm really happy to fall apart in that love that I can feel, like suddenly being touched by, say, communication, as I call it. It's like suddenly you're communicating, having such a deep experience of the love that communicates, that you have like, well, that has nothing to do with anything in this world, but I'm experiencing it in my complete being. See, this is also like you that happens to you. Suddenly that start to happen to you. And for sure it did happen to you before. It's like these things are a real possibility. And it's lovely to share that, and also to remember it, and also to be open for the next to come, so to speak. But see, you cannot force that. It's not that you have a real control over it. But at the same time, we've seen this many times too, is like, well, forgiving your brother for what he didn't do is really a good way to do that too. Seeing that, oh my God, I was holding something against someone and now I'm giving that up, and it starts to feel so good. I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy to have not that conflict in my mind. And that's already a relief. And so on. Like, there's so many situations in which you can experience a release of something that you were holding on before. Even when you're holding on about ideas about yourself, to let them go is so nice too. Thinking that you need to function in a certain way, look in a certain way, or produce, or like really do something in a certain way. To set yourself free of that and allow yourself to relax into the freedom of not having to do that is already like something opens up in you. Suddenly there's more space for you to have a deep experience of yourself, just like that. See, but it is your choice, and you have to take time for it, to be aware that you have a choice, and then to just wait a moment, to let something happen, even though it might feel a bit empty in the beginning. You just don't know how that goes. And then also Joel says this too, is by reading metaphysical literature, that can be a great help too, of course, because hey, you're literally feeding yourself with the frequency that's being transferred by reading these words and allowing to let them echo in you or touch you. That to become, say, in the mode of really hearing what it says, and allowing yourself to fully be affected by it is also one great way to have a great experience of yourself. So meditation, and you saw, maybe you listened to one of the videos that I posted, it's like about the teaching of the infinite way. You see that contemplative meditation and prayer, or treatment and prayer, that's also in this chapter though. It's like contemplative meditation is then taking one of these quotes and opening them up in you in order for you to completely be affected by it. That's what Joel calls contemplative meditation, that is not a conceptual activity. So it is, you bring an idea in, something that's really resonating with you, and you allow that to completely affect you, even for an instant. So then Joel goes over to the idea of treatment and prayer. So what is the difference between them? Like, what is the difference between treatment and prayer? So he says that's pretty clear, so I will not talk too much about it. But I think it's great, like we have this class right now, and then we actually go into prayer, a prayer meditation, if you want, a miracle prayer meditation afterwards, after this. So you can see this as our treatment. This is a healing activity, it's a healing class, and spiritual healing class. It is a treatment in itself, So what we do in the treatment then is allowing and the Christ frequency, so to speak, the Christ energy to be present with us, like joining in one purpose, saying, yes, we come together. We want to wake up out of this dream of limitation. There must be another way, and let's come together for that and see what happens. So this is already enough for the healing to occur. So that's why this is a great, say, demonstration or teaching, literally, of the message. It is happening here in this moment. It is not happening another time. So then the great thing with treatment then is actually when you feel this too during the class too. It's like when you come to the end of the class, suddenly there's a stillness that has a different quality than when you entered in. So that's really like you start to come into a prayer mode, so to speak, or prayer frequency, in which you directly communicate with your Creator, with God. There's a real possibility for that. And so today I chose one of the prayer lessons, miracle prayer lessons, to support that idea. So see, what we read, what we do, and what we share becomes one thing just in the act of coming together and going through this process in the undoing of, and also opening up, and then to see that we can spend some time in communication, in communion with God, in direct communication. And that can be as deep, as intense as you want, as you open yourself up for it. So that's really wonderful. That's an incredible opportunity, and I'm really happy that you join with me in that. That's really great. That's really great. So thank you for that. So another aspect is the idea. I want to come back to the idea of say contemplative meditation, or concept versus experience. Is that we think, like as a human being, you think that you can have ideas about something, like you can have opinions or ideas about something without becoming it, as if there's a way to stay off the ideas that you share, as if they don't affect you. And Joel says this in this chapter too, that is not true. It's like what you think is affecting the way that you feel about yourself. That is always connected to one another. Like literally you become what you think. What your opinion is becomes what you think about yourself. And that determines whether you can have an experience of Christ or say, communication. Because you're literally limiting yourself by the thoughts that you have, or by the value that you give certain things that are, say, appearing in your life, in your daily activities, or in your, the happenings that are taking place. So it's good to be aware of the fact that you cannot just talk about something and thinking that does not affect your idea about yourself, the way that you see yourself. See, and why is that so important? Well, you know all about this. It's like the fact that you think in a certain way about yourself also, say, dictates the possibilities that you give to yourself. So, and that means then, if you allow, say, these ideas that we share to come to you and be open to them, you have a great possibility to realize them, to have them be revealed to you. But if you, say, walk around with ideas like, well, I'm a beginner, I will never get this, I have no idea if this is going to work for me, or so you limit yourself in any way, or even thinking that you're a human being on this planet, or living like that, sharing ideas like that, confirming ideas as a human being all the time, you literally limit yourself of the possibility of having a Christ experience. So that is really important to remember, so this is what Joel shares in this chapter too, and he calls it in the end, it's like spiritual integrity. That's an essential point, the spiritual integrity. So what you say, what you do, and what you think, let it be one thing, not having any conflict in between of that. That is important for your experience of yourself. So, and that is, you'll keep that in mind, like what I think about myself, what I say that I am, and what I experience. They seem to be three different things, but they come closer to one another. And when they come together, it's the moment that you can be free of conflict. So it's literally, they come together in just one moment. The moment that you don't think that you're separate, the moment that you don't think that you're locked in time, and the moment that you think that you're not a body, or that your brother is not a body. If that comes together, then you see that there's nothing preventing you from having a great experience of who you really are. So these things are very important. And the spiritual integrity, I will read a little bit about it. And when I say about it, I don't really mean about it. I'm actually letting you get in touch with it. Okay, so here's an instruction, like the first paragraph, the instruction for the teacher. The subject of error should be very lightly touched upon with the young student and not dealt with in its deeper aspects until he is well prepared for it. It is not an easy subject, and certainly cannot be taught to anyone until the practitioner or teacher himself has really mastered it. Spiritual teaching is not the transfer of thoughts from one individual to the other. It is the impartation of consciousness from God. And in that lifting up of consciousness, all necessary knowledge is received. So that is so great. So this is good to be reminded of too. Like, okay, so this, you need to experience this. You need to have experiences with this before you can share this. Like, you can only share your own experiences. And that's what is lovely to be reminded of. Also, not to dive too deep into the ideas of error, because you can really get yourself stuck in that, always looking at the idea of error instead of opening yourself up for the communication for God, or starting to take time to be still, just as a start, taking time to be gentle with yourself, taking time to not respond immediately to the ones that are around you. So all these things are helping you to create more space inside yourself, in which you are going to discover your new self, and also you feel the resistance to receiving that and seeing where that comes from. You could say that is error. And so that's, don't hammer it on anyone that is just starting in this. So that will not be very helpful, but just invite in for a deeper experience of oneself. Oh yeah, this is a nice one too. So it's full of instruction, really. The teacher must be careful never to pass on to a patient or student quotations or statements which might be considered in the nature of clichés, until he has at least demonstrated the truth of them in some degree. There's nothing worse in this work than hollow phrases and statements. In their enthusiasm, many practitioners are likely to retort glibly to any call made upon them. Oh, it isn't real. Of course, a person asking for help and doesn't know it isn't. Oh yeah, wait, sorry. Oh no, it's not real. Of course, a person asking for help doesn't know it isn't real. And moreover, had the practitioner known that whatever he was talking about was not real, the patient would never have been healed in that moment, and he would never have had to voice it. So that's a good one too, isn't it? So you see so much quotation on Instagram or Facebook, people share a lot of that. Just throwing it in as, oh, this is a good one. Yeah, let's do that one too. So what is that going to do? Not much. That's not much going to do. So that's great to be reminded of this, even in the time that Instagram and Facebook didn't exist. So you can still do that. Apparently, you did that. They did that in 56 too, or 57. So this is, what are you sharing? What are you teaching? What are you demonstrating? Are you throwing just, say, concepts around, or are you coming from your deep experience about what you share? And then, see, you don't have to do that much. Who are you going to convince? That's also what Joel says here. Who are you going to convince? It is really for yourself. If you accept that for yourself, you radiate it. It will just be there. And, you don't need to convince anyone. If you want to convince anyone, convince yourself that it really works, and see it reflected everywhere. See it reflected in the brother that you meet and in the ones that you get in touch with. So this is really great instruction from Joel. Oh yeah, this is one more example of the this here. Suppose I declare as a spiritual truth, there's only one self, there's only one life, and yet, when some occasion arises, I lie and I cheat a little. To whom am I lying and whom am I cheating? Since there's only one self, who am I deceiving? Since there's only one mind and one life. Ah, that's so great, isn't it? It's so great to hear this. It's like, oh yeah, let's keep it. Yeah, it's basically keeping it really simple. It is not difficult. It is just so many things that you don't have to do, even though you get tempted to do them. Like we all did that. I know that in the beginning, from my awakening, and when I first started to get some grip on concepts, so to speak, I would love to teach everyone, like my parents, my sisters, my everything is like, and they're like, are you all right? Are you okay? Like, well, no, it's the truth, and I have to teach this, and it's important, and oh, no. Like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So it's funny to see that, you know. So you've discovered something for yourself and you want to scream it off the rooftops, which is, enthusiasm is great. It's just that, yeah, keep that just for yourself for a moment. You know, keep it secret, sacred. And you don't have to throw it out to everyone, because it's like, yeah, the idea, the say this association that comes to me is like pearls for the swines. Like you don't want to throw it just to everyone. No, it is very dear to you. So keep it like that too, and treasure it for a moment so it can grow in yourself. Say having Christ idea, like having this Christ baby that you carry in you that needs to grow. It needs nurturing. It needs time. It needs, say, attention. It needs love in order to grow. So that is also part of the, let the spiritual integrity like grow from within, and not any other way. It will be impossible anyway. So Joel comes with a whole list of examples still where it's not so integrated, like thinking that you miss something, that you need a beautiful car, or thinking that you have everything, saying that, okay, so here's one example. All that the Father has is mine, and then thinking that you actually lack something, wanting something. See, that's not working either. So there's a little bit of conflict there. So when you accept the spiritual teaching of oneness, of the one self, of the one mind, as the mind of every individual, of one mind, one soul, one spirit, and life, and live it, you can see that you will be helping to usher in the millennium, beginning about the time when no one could possibly act or think or do to another that which he would not do to his own being, because he would know that the self of the other person is the self of his own being. Like, don't do unto others what you wouldn't do to yourself. See, that's also very simple. It's very basic. But it's also very much a part of the, say, of the spiritual integration. You know, it's like you cannot fool yourself when you have judgment, when you have opinions, when you have, you know, ideas about others that aren't very friendly. All of this is like, that is not going to be helpful for you to experience your spiritual integrity. So now all this is good instruction. So I would say just read the chapter one more time. I will certainly do that too. It's really great. See, but this chapter is so full. There's so much more in it, and I cannot share everything right now. But maybe I would love to end with this, and that is, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Spiritual peace I give you, the peace that passes understanding, the peace that is not dependent upon person or outer condition. Now nothing in this world can affect you who are free in Christ in spiritual consciousness. You will walk up and down the world, come and go freely, and none of the world's beliefs will kindle upon you. The flames will not harm you, the waters will not drown. I have put my seal upon you, and you are free. Walk up and down, in and out. Spiritual law upholds your being, your body, your business. Tell no man what things you have seen and heard. Do not explain or tell people of your freedom from this world. Move in and out among men as a blessing, as a benediction, as the light of the world. Let this life and mind be in you, which was in Christ Jesus. Be receptive, be expectant, be always alert to receive inner guidance and direction and support. Keep attuned to your world within, yet fulfill all your duties without. Fulfill all your obligations without, but keep alert within. All right, so thank you so much for joining me in this. And so the next part that will start in like 15 minutes or so is the meditation. You're welcome to stay for that. And for now, we're wrapping this up. So thank you for your presence here, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.